Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Paranormal Brew. I'm your host, Taryn. Every Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Unless I have to make some arrangements for my guests, we do go to a different day, but mainly my day is Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, live. Hello, Kristen, gorgeous one. Love you. Hi, Dragon. I hope I'm saying. Wait, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Dragon Ranger? Sorry. Um, how are you this evening? Thank you so much for joining me. Or joining us, should I say. Um, Tonight I have a very special guest on. He's been on my show. I love to say he is like a walking encyclopedia. He knows so much about everything. And so much though that we had to do two two parts on this because I know we're not gonna like we're just not we wanted to do two of them. So yes, hey Fear the Living. So he's coming on in 2 weeks as well. And in 2 weeks, we're gonna be talking about like folklore and spooky stories and like, some myths and legends and some truth surrounding spooky things around Christmas and spooky Christmas, Dragon Ranger, yes, thank you. I apologize. um so tonight we're going to be talking about ancient civilizations, and luckily I didn't doubt this, but Ron Murphy knows a lot about ancient civilizations. Ancient civilization fascinates me. I recently went to Italy and I went to Pompeii, and I couldn't believe how advanced they were in 79 AD and going on back, and how where we got to a point where we had to start over. We're also going to touch on the fact that, a lot of the hieroglyphics, a lot of their writings, included what we perceive or what a lot of people perceive as looking things like spaceships, and some of the practices that they did as far as spiritual and everything, this and that. They were very spiritual people. They were very sexual people. They I mean, I would love to go back in time and just see a glimpse of the life that they lived. And of course, I'm talking about the people that probably had money, because if you didn't have money, or if you weren't, you know, in a prestigious, I don't know if I'm using the right word. Ron will be able to explain it better. But if you weren't, in a high society or whatever, you got the shitty end of the stick, in my opinion. But before I bring Ron on, I just want to introduce him really quick. Ron Murphy Jr. is an investigator with a passion for peeling back the veil between history and the unknown. An accomplished author, historian, and a seasoned paranormal researcher, Ron brings a scholar's eye and an adventurer's heart on his quest into the unexplained. Armed with a master's degree in history, he dives deep into legends, folklore, and the mysteries that ripple through human civilization. His lifelong fascination with ancient cultures fuels his search for the hidden connections between our earliest ancestors and the supernatural tales that still captivate us today. With electrifying storytelling and razor sharp insight, Ron Murphy Jr. invites listeners on a thrilling journey through time, myth, the supernatural, and the unexplained. And let me tell you something, he's a very good storyteller, which is why I love having him on my show. So, without further ado, I am going to bring this wonderful man on.
Tara and one of my favorite people in the entire world, not even including the paranormal world, just one of my all-time favorite peeps.
Well, I am honored. Thank you so much because you're one of my most favorite peeps, which is why I love having you come on and we get to have these talks. Um, and listen, and I guarantee you it is. Hold on, trying to get to my YouTube channel. Hold on one second. I'm not being rude. I promise.
Oh no, that's okay. Do what you need to do.
No, I'm excited to have you on because and I'm excited. I'm going to have you on again in 2 weeks, and we're going
A
to
few
talk.
weeks, exactly right.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we're going to talk spooky Christmas. So I'm
Yes,
excited.
that's right.
So let's dive into ancient civilizations. And I mean, obviously, I focus more on the Pompeii thing because I was recently at Pompeii. So, I mean, I literally touched those streets that were over 2,000 years old. You know what I mean? Like, literally touching those streets is take the paranormal out of it, you still get this feeling of something in the air there. Like, I don't know if what captivates your energy and your mind, your spirit, your heart is seeing these structures from way back when that was wiped out within minutes.
Mm-hmm.
From this volcano. I mean, I actually climbed the volcano. I climbed Mount Vesuvius. It was still it's still smoking. Like, there's smoke coming out of the inside of this thing. And, our tour guide was like, "She's sleeping. She's sleeping." I'm like, "Well, hopefully she doesn't wake up today."
That's right. Well, this is a great starting point because I've never visited the site of Vesuvius or Pompeii. I've never been to Italy. So let me ask you. So, as a tourist that was there, describe what you saw. Like, what set this place apart from other places? More than just the feeling, like the architecture. What really did it for you?
I I mean, there's not one thing, but I will tell you this. One of the things that fascinated me was how advanced they were. I couldn't believe they had like a market. They had a market where, like, they explained, like, it was like fast food, if you will, today. They compared it to that, where you'd walk down and they would close. They had doors that would roll close. They had a water system, a septic, like pipes. And the only reason why, and they said that's how they knew, correct me because I know I'm probably going to mess this up, but they knew the degree of what they knew. The lava didn't kill them. It was more of um the heat blast, and they knew what temperature it got to, because if it had gotten to a certain temperature, it would have melted the pipes. They had like lead, I think lead piping going through as for the water system and everything. Another thing that fascinated me was how sexual they were. Um, just how open and it was funny because she was telling us that Pompeii was kind of like a tourist attraction even back then. It was for, like, tourists were coming from all over. The water's right there, right? So tourists would come in. So they used pictorial guides, and to get to these, what you would say the brothels, might what they would be, maybe a brothel, what we would call a brothel. Um, the directions to get you there was carved out penises on the walls of the buildings to show you which direction to go to. And then you would get to the place, and they had, because not everybody spoke the same language, so they had pictorials of what you wanted and the pricing. So you would point to the picture of what you wanted. And they had bidets, they had physicians, they had antibiotics then. I mean, it's crazy to me how advanced they were. And then at what point did civilization start over?
Right. I think that these are all good points. And the reason why I brought this up is that we're talking about Pompeii that was in existence until 79 AD, right? Which is kind of like much more modern, you know.
Yeah.
So, what happens when we go back, 12,000 years before that, when we see one of the first civilizations starting to creep up out of the hunter gatherer societies. That's what's so striking about these civilizations, because Pompeii, as advanced as it was really kind of like at the tail end of these major advancements in the ancient world, which is incredible if you think about it. We talk about, plumbing nowadays, although we do know for a fact that the Romans had, indoor plumbing where you could actually, it's not like going and flushing your toilet, but it had a system of waste removal and everything. Also, they had, underfloor heating as well too, where you could heat your homes. So, as striking as it may seem, what you're doing is you're looking back into the past that would have been probably much more modern than we are led to believe, right? I mean, they had creature comforts that we would have never dreamt about, but we know that these societies were cultured in many many ways, and I think by looking at things like the prostitution and looking at things about the artwork, that tells you a fascinating insight into the culture. So we know that with all the sexual things that we know that they are in display, that we know that that was a part of the culture because there was a bit of freedom there as well too, right? There was a time for these people who didn't have to work, 16 hours a day. They had leisure time, so much leisure time that they could have an orgy. And I will tell you this, Taryn, we live in the 21st century, and I've never had an orgy. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm just saying, these people had leisure time. So,
Right. That's the
yeah,
thing. I mean, they literally, hold on, basically, so Dragon Ranger saying basically the Roman plumbing for the bathrooms, if I am thinking correctly, was oh, he must have hit that before. Okay. Um, but yeah, like it's crazy to me how they were so it was like you're looking at an older version of today
yeah,
because
right, right.
you wouldn't expect it because I mean, the other thing that fascinated me was that they had actual loaves of bread from 79 AD. There are loaves of bread. They had 12 loaves of bread preserved. Do you know what I'm saying? So like
I
there's so
do.
many things that I couldn't, having bidets and having like just the whole thing. Oh, and then one-way streets. They had one-way
Yeah,
streets. They had
right.
like it was just crazy to me how I was like, "Wow, how are we there and now we're only here?"
Right. Oh
See?
no, no, I do. One billion percent. What you're saying right now is something that more people should talk about because that's absolutely correct. What happened between then and now? I think that that is worthy of debate and discussion because we're the same people, but for whatever reason, we have kind of fallen away from those things. So this is all very worthy of discussion, and I cannot wait to dive into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The other thing too at Pompeii, there is a dog preserved. I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but he was actually tied to his little doghouse, and there was a sign on the doghouse that read in Latin, "Caveat canine," which means "Beware of dogs." So does not even sound quite modern as well.
I know it's just it's crazy. It is so
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so he finished. So he says basically the Roman plumbing for the bathrooms, if I am thinking correctly, wasn't that it that it was straight into the aqueducts that went into the rivers.
Right. So it wouldn't have been like, holding tanks where things were processed and everything. But I mean, this is a huge improvement over pooping and peeing in a hole, right? You have waste moved from one place into another, which, you can't beat that. But getting back to whenever you said about these conduits and these pipes made out of lead, that's absolutely the case. But one of the stunning things is some of these aqueducts are over 150 miles long, that that they gathered people together and they had some sort of infrastructure to assign jobs to lay underground piping to pull water from springs and mountain lakes and things like that, to bring them into cities. And whenever you would go over a valley or you would go over a river, you would actually then build a bridge, and that's where you get these great viaducts from. Some of them still in use even to this very day. So think about this: 2,000 years ago, and we're still using bridges that were built by the Romans. And here, I live right outside of Pittsburgh, and a few years ago, one of our bridges collapsed, and it was only like 25 years old.
So
So there was something the Romans were doing that was right. I mean, they were smart, they were advanced, and they also were able to master concrete, which is another that was a vastly superior building technique as well too. So they came up with a lot of really cool engineering ideas. Were able to put them to use, and not only did they provide the framework by which we have our government, right? They also provided a framework on how we go into building things and how we lay out cities, and we owe that to our friends the Romans.
yeah, and that was the other thing. Like the Roman Empire is just. I mean, that was the other thing I was watching. I said, it just fascinates. So I used to want to be an archaeologist.
Mm.
That was my when I was little. My thing was I wanted to be an archaeologist. My mother talked me out of it. So you'd never make any money doing that. You'll
Mm.
never make any money doing that. So I was like, okay, I guess not. But so today, anytime a show comes on, anytime like I'm so fascinated with it. I would love to be a part of these archaeological digs that they're doing over there. You know what I mean? And see what they're. I mean, the artwork, the the things that they uncover, the pottery, the just everything that they used. It just it fascinates. Like we could use today. We do use.
Right. We do. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, the ideas are still there, right? So we have our government, we have our senators, which is based upon a Latin word. So we have that basis and that framework from which we gather our laws and our legal traditions and just the way we govern and everything like that. And so much as that's come from the past. So we're basically building in America, and our founding fathers knew this. They were building in America on top of the ruins of Rome in a way. These ideas that never fully died because they were so universal in thought. And it made so much sense that, like I said, America was sort of rebuilt as a new Rome in a way, without a doubt. And if you go to Washington D.C., you can see triumphal arches that the Romans used, and you can see these great obelisks and things, all harkening back to a time whenever that was par for the course in that civilization.
So you're saying like 12,000 years before Pompeii,
Mhm.
right?
So remarkably, right? So we're talking at a time whenever the last glaciers were melting, right? This is a time of hunter gatherers, and for some strange reason, a group of people came together in present day Turkey, and they made a place that's called Göbekli Tepe. Have you heard of that before?
No.
So this is, yeah, one of the oldest sites in the world, and the name simply means um, uh, it's like a pot belly stove. So the tell that they call it. Whenever there's a civilization, over time after the abandonment, it will start forming a hill because all the dirt and everything piles up. So the one hill looked a little bit like a potbelly stove, and that's where we get the name from. But as they excavated it, they found some sort of site that is the oldest in the world. And it actually predates Stonehenge by an astounding, 10,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's by far the oldest site in the world. Well, the oldest known site in the world, and we have 10-foot tall pillars there. We have things that are looking like animals. We have a human statue. We have a human face. All of this brought together in this ceremonial area, which has never been found again, or which had never been found up until then. So the question that is asked by archaeologists is what brought these people together, because this would have been a very difficult time to live, a hunter gatherer right at the end of the ice age. This is a very foreboding world, but it brought people together. So some sort of proto civilization started from that. At one time it was thought that civilization is what spurned religion on, right? People gathered together and then religion developed. Now some people are suggesting that religion developed and then people became civilized around that particular cult site. And that's the way this is, Göbekli Tepe is looking like right now. The people started to settle that area because it was a cultic ritual site.
Well, why do you think that things like that change? You think it's because there's more and more information being found, more and more? I mean, or do you think you get somebody that walks in and says, "Oh, you know what? I know that this is what we've been thinking all these years, but let's look at it this way." Like, is it because there's more evidence of that, or is it just because somebody's throwing an idea out there and it's sticking?
Yeah. So you're talking about like in the ancient past, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great point. So we have been anatomically human beings, the same size brain and everything like that for maybe 200,000 years, So we've been around here. So, we think about Albert Einstein's and Elon Musk's, and we think about, Stephen King's and all these great thinkers. Those minds were also in the past as well. So the people that had the insight to build things like the Eiffel Tower and all that stuff, that was still back then. You still have that human desire to show that we were here, right? The production of art, the kind of things like the kind of leave their fingerprints behind in the landscape. We were human, and that's what is part of our humanity. So I think that you had people that gathered together, and whether through some sort of revelation within the natural world itself, or what have you. A lot of people even say that they were doing certain types of psychedelic drugs, and that's what brought people together as well too. But regardless of what brought people together, somebody in the very ancient past decided that they would come together and give tasks to individuals. So people had a job to build something in common for the common good.
So, what are your thoughts on how these people, without modern technology, were able to build these structures that were so what seems inhumanly possible? You
Right,
know,
right,
without heavy machinery, without the technology we have. I mean, it's
right.
so fascinating.
Right. Well, they didn't have the will. I mean, that's the huge thing, right? So they were able to get, 5, 6 ton pieces of stone and, quarry them and move them to this particular site. For what reason? Why would people do such a thing? Now, again, we could say that this was a sacred site, that these pillars, these monuments they were building were for the gods, what have you. But what happens if it's much more human than that? What happens if the animals that were carved on this stuff and everything was kind of just like a gathering point where people made art and we came together, and maybe even it served as a healing center. A lot of people are thinking now that Stonehenge served as some sort of primitive hospital. And maybe that's what brought people together as well, too. We're gathered together, and it's possible they had some sort of working knowledge of frequency and sound, because we know that Stonehenge is capable of producing a sound chamber. So if you would go in there and play drums, it would reverberate in such a way that it would have a direct impact on the human body, right? So maybe it's this lost idea that in the past our ancient ancestors knew how to manipulate the world around them in such a way that they used natural sound to produce healing in somebody. Because again, we look at these ancient sites and they're very round shaped, right? Almost like a theater, almost like when we talked about the Romans, how the Romans had theaters in which you could, it circled everything and you look down on it. It's very possible that this is part of the ancient equation as well too. Whenever they had some knowledge that the way nature works and the way universe works is through frequency and vibrations, and they were able to use that for the good.
I just like, I know it's hard to answer this, but how?
Right.
Without without we're spoiled, right? We have any answer we want at the tip of our, at our
Right.
fingertips. You Google or you look up, and we've had, centuries of researchers and, explorers and all this and that have given us this knowledge. Like, you're talking 12,000 years ago, these people are coming out of an ice age, and there's nothing.
Right. Yeah, these are cavemen, right?
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, these were basically cavemen. And but again, you know, I do firmly believe that there was a lost knowledge there someplace. So where did that knowledge come from? Some people suggest that it came from a lost civilization. One that even predates these other civilizations, and they had a store of knowledge, and they either sent people out to teach other cultures, or somehow that understanding escaped a little bit, so we learned a little bit about that. That's one thing. Or Von Doniken, of course, said that we were visited by ancient astronauts, and they imparted their knowledge to us. But I don't think it takes all that kind of stuff. Again, I am a firm believer in the capabilities of the human being and the human mind and what it's capable of doing. So I think what we're missing is, without television, without a phone, without any of that kind of stuff, we are on our own in a very inhospitable world. And it's up to us to reimagine the world around us, or we die, right? We don't have fur, we don't have claws or sharp teeth or anything like that. So it's up to our brain to produce this out of the environment. And we had a couple 100,000 years to work on this. One of the things that I'm dumbfounded by is that at one point somebody was walking around and they see a stone that has, some bronze in it, and they thought, you know what we could do? We could take that stone, we'll heat it up really hot, we'll get that bronze out of it, and then we'll make tools out of it. Like, who comes up with that kind of thing,
That's what
right?
I'm
Like,
saying. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. So we have to believe in somewhere in antiquity we had a very brave individual out there to to ingest a plant that helped cure diarrhea, right? Or took something that then became a medicine. There are a lot of people out there that are simply brave, and they won't take no for an answer. It's kind of like that show Jackass. I think that probably, back in 200,000 years ago, there was a bunch of people going around probably punking each other, and this is how it all came to be. But yeah, again, human beings are capable of doing some amazing things. But I do understand your rationale as well too. Like, how does that happen? And not only how does that happen with one culture, but it seems like cultures that were separated by time and space come across the same thing as well.
Right. And
Yeah.
and they keep evolve like they just kept evolving. Like, I mean, to have one-way streets and to have,
Right,
all this stuff, like, how, like, what made them think of that? Like, it makes sense now because,
right.
you know what I mean? But why did that make sense then? Like, why was that, you know, do you believe that there was what some people believe, like if you take the show Ancient Aliens, that there was some divine intervention or some, galactic intervention that, or, because they were also very spiritual people. They believed in all the gods. They believed in, they had their, you know, rituals when people died, even like how we do today. They were different, but they still had rituals of when people died for the spirit. You know what I mean? Like, where it just baffles my mind that that it existed.
Right, right. So I guess my kind of counterpunch to all that stuff is, I don't believe that they were necessarily visited by some sort of being that showed a revelation, because if they did, I don't think that they would be quite so human, because we have to understand the Romans, as much as they were capable of doing in the area of law, in government, in architecture, they were also a very, very violent people, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
you can see that humanity right there, like staring you in the face. We have to talk about the Colosseum for a little bit. We have to talk about gladiators. All this stuff really comes into their worldview as well, and that really shows the humanity behind these great minds, because they weren't always thinking about poetry and building aqueducts and all that stuff. They were also thinking about how's the best way to kill my fellow man as well.
Oh yeah, I remember when again in Pompeii. I can only use this because being right there, and when the tour guide was taking us around, if you didn't practice the religion that they practice, or you didn't believe in the beliefs that the hierarchy, if you will. I'm using lack of. I know my terminology probably isn't correct, but like the people that the like you said, the Senate and the government, you know, they said that there was what looked like, she said, what looked like fish wire. Wait, what is that? Um, oh my gosh, my brain. Not fish wire. What is that? What do they call that? Chicken wire? Like fencing.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, chicken wire. We'll go with chicken wire.
Chicken wire. Okay, and they would put fire underneath of it, and they would put the people on top of this chicken wire, and
Mhm.
they would just burn them, and that was like punishment. You know what I mean? For things. And I'm just like, oh my God. So when you say that they were the humanity part, like their punishments were so like I can't even imagine, like,
Right.
the torture that they did. You know what I mean, to
Well,
people.
sure. Up until the age of about 12 years old, I, as a father, had complete control over the life or death of my child. Like, I could legally kill my child. That was just the way it was. Women had very little rights. And really, the accused really had no legal representation whatsoever. So, as much as these people were advanced, there was also barbarism involved too, and that's what makes ancient cultures so terrifying to me, because at once they seem to be rather angelic or inspired by the gods, right? They seem to have some sort of information that only they were given or they were shown. But then on the flip side of it, these guys were, homicidal maniacs as well too, right? So it's that duplicity, it's that dichotomy of the human being laid out through all of history. How beautiful we are at shaping the world around us, but how terribly animalistically we are as well too, whenever it comes to people fighting each other as well. So it is really truly in that microcosm where we see the best and the worst of humanity playing about.
Yeah, I mean, even with animals, like if I lived back then, I'd have to skip out on all the animal stuff. Like, I mean,
Right.
that,
Right. And that's a good point because we do know from the ancient writers that people did complain about it. Not everybody was gung ho for that. One time there was a slaughter of a herd of elephant, and people were complaining left and right about this. But again, so we know that these people, again, these ancient Greeks and Romans, the Romans especially, we know that they would go out on safaris into Africa looking for all these weird animals to bring back to Rome, things that people had never seen before, ostriches and crocodile and, elephants and hippopotamus and all these other great animals. They were able to take these wild animals and carry them 2,000 miles or more back to Rome and put them on display. People had never seen anything like this before. And then they would keep them on display for a little bit, and then they would go and slaughter them in front of everybody as well too. That is about as human as you can possibly get. But if you think about it in this way, so think about these great coliseums, right? We have this circular playing floor below us. So a few researchers have suggested that it's supposed to represent the Roman world, right? So as a Roman, we get to come together and we sit down and we see all these great animals and all these strange sights brought from all over the known world, right? We bring these natural wonders and now we can watch them being slaughtered because we have that kind of control over the earth itself and over other people. We have in our grasp the ability to give life and the ability to take life, and that kind of sacred this kind of sacred bond that we have with all life can now be turned on its head, and we can show how powerful we are by simply destroying it all in front of us as well too, because the Romans were in control of the world. And whenever you look at places like the Colosseum or any other place where gladiatorial combat took place, or animal games took place as well, you were looking down upon the world from the lofty heights of being a Roman and what a Roman meant, because you had laws that protected you in ways that it didn't protect people that were non-Roman. So they were definitely cut out from the rest of the world. They were special, and they flaunted that in all ways possible.
yeah. Yeah, I was watching something about you bring up the Colosseum and it being circular, and they were talking about the Colosseum in Rome specifically, but they were saying something about how you put, like, everybody was on display for everybody. It wasn't just what was going on. You were able to, it was in a circular, so it was in a circular formation, because now everybody could look at everybody. Everybody could see everybody's reaction and emotion, what they were watching. So everybody was the show. It wasn't just what was going on in the middle, it was everything around you too that people were watching. Everybody was on display, everybody was a part of the show.
Absolutely, that is the case. And but again, going back to this magical part of engineering as well too, the Coliseum sat about 52,000 people, about the same amount as a professional football stadium, and it was designed to empty out in about 15 minutes. So there was so much engineering behind it as well too, and we know that the Coliseum also had a retractable roof on it as well too.
What?
Probably,
Wait a
yeah,
second, I
oh yeah.
didn't
Yeah, they did. So it wouldn't be like what you would think about. They had these wooden structures that came out, and they probably hired people that worked on ships. And kind of like whenever you put a sail on a sailing ship, they would bring out these great sails, these great pieces of canvas, so you could cover up the people whenever it got too hot and too sunny.
know. Wow.
and then you could pull them back in as well too. But we know also that they were able to flood the Colosseum as well. Like they knew even how to do that, so they could put on these fake naval battles as well. So they knew, like I said, they knew what they were doing, and they were able to make a spectacle out of that as well too. Kind of like throw it in their faces and flaunt it.
It, I'm just so fascinated about how they could do it. I
Yeah,
mean, that's my ultimate thing is like just when you think about it, it's just it's fascinating to me how
yeah. Oh
minds
yeah,
are able to create these things and make things happen without just by using the earth and the
that's
land
right.
around them and the people. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's
It,
so
it, It is amazing. That's exactly right. And we see these great building projects, like I said, from Göbekli Tepe, Göbekli Tepe, uh, from 14, 13,000 years ago, the whole way up to Stonehenge to the pyramid. We see these great building projects that continued, almost unabated. We see these great ziggurats in Babylon. We have massive architecture going the entire way around this Fertile Crescent, for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden it stops and it's not seen again. Probably it probably goes away after the building of the Colosseum, and after well, you know what? So, as a historian, I would say that the last major building project was seen under the reign of Constantine, and he built an aqueduct that went about, I think, 150 miles. So that's really the last great monumental building structure up until the time that the churches are being built in France. So we have almost 1,000 years of nothing going on until the human spirit kicks back in again.
but what was going on during those thousands of years?
Well, that's when we have the Dark Ages, right? That's what it's called that for a reason. So Rome in its very height. So, and another thing too is Rome only lasts for about 600 or 700 years, right? As a civilization, it burns very, very brightly, but it flickers out. We have people competing with each other. We have the Roman Empire dividing itself. We have a lot of really nasty things going on internally, right? After Julius Caesar is murdered, there's a lot of bickering on who's going to rule what and everything. And all that internal strife makes for very, very weak borders. And this allows now for the great barbarian invasion to happen. So now you have outside forces coming in to a very destabilized and weakened Roman Empire, and they are now able to start taking over because what made Rome so they have the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. And the reason why there was Roman peace is because nobody wanted to screw with the Roman Empire's legions, their armies. Nobody wanted to do with that because it was the best trained military in the entire world the world had ever seen. But now with all this infighting and all these people now dividing their loyalty to different people, you have this weakness. And with that weakness comes a void, and that void is now filled up by the barbarians.
Wow.
And then so Rome falls, sometime in the mid 400s, and it falls, and it's gone forever except, and this is where you put a little asterisk up. So the Western Roman Empire falls, but it's still going on over in Constantinople, right? It's still going on in the Byzantine Roman Empire is still going on, and that doesn't fall until the 1460s.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the other. So it's complicated, and we do see some great building over there as well too. In 537, we have Justinian. He builds the Hagia Sophia. So we do see some building like that as well too, and they still classify themselves as Romans as well, even though there was that separation. But they did away with the games. There was no more gladiatorial games. There was no more animal killing. There was no more crucifixion. They started to become much more civilized as the uncivilized barbarian took control of the regions around them.
Wow. And there had to be, you know, there had to be a vote on that. There had to be like some sort of something happening to be like, okay, we're going to change this now. We're not doing this anymore.
Right, sure. So, one of the Greeks. So you're fascinated by the Romans. I've always been fascinated by the Greeks because they were a little less pragmatic than the Romans. I think their art was much more beautiful, and I think that they were much. It seemed like they lived a more poetic existence, but they left behind a lot of writings and everything that we could turn to and look at it and say, well, yeah, this is what was going on. But yeah, so the idea of voting and deciding, what we should do next was very much a part of the Greek system as well too. And during the Persian War, there was a need for a navy. So there was this gentleman by the name of Themistocles. He was a great naval mind, and he put together a naval force, and he was able to destroy the Persians. But the Greeks were a little bit curious about him because he was getting a little bit too big for his britches, right? He was becoming very popular, so they thought, you know what, let's get rid of him. Even though he was a military leader that helped us in a tremendous way, they did something called they ostracized him. And ostra were these little pieces of fragments of broken pottery, and you would write down your vote on it, basically, kind of like Survivor. And then they would collect all these ostra together, and then they would tabulate it, and that's what would make you ostracized, right? You are now separated from the community. And you know what? They said Themistocles was getting too powerful politically, so they sent him away for 10 years, even though he was a naval hero, simply because it was voted on by the people.
And they were afraid of him. They were
They
afraid
were
to let
afraid
him
of
go.
him. That's right. That's
They were
right.
afraid to
That's
let him
right.
go. So he was excommunicado.
He was for 10 years, and then he allowed you to come back.
And
Yeah.
then
But,
he was allowed to come back.
yeah. But I think that they take like you get to keep your property, and I think that like they take care of your family as well too. It's like not so horrible. Like they just don't want you around building your own little cult. You know what I mean? They don't want you bringing people like gathering an army together and stuff.
Yeah. But so as a historian, um,
Uh-huh.
how do you feel about um, the study of the ancient aliens with ancient civilizations? Like, how do you believe that there could be some truth to that, or do you not believe in that at all?
Well, so like as an historian, it's very difficult to like say, "Oh yes, I definitely believe that." So what we can say is we keep an open mind, and that's basically what I do. But we do know, okay, I will tell you some of the things that we do know that we really cannot explain away. So we have what looks like depicted in and around the pyramids of something that looks remarkably like a light bulb, right? And some people had suggested that there was something called the Iraq battery, which was this kind of a clay pot, and it was believed that you put certain type of citric acids in there, it would actually produce enough material to like bring on a light, right? So there's been suggestions that at least light was being able to be produced in the ancient world. I'm not so sure about that, but I will tell you that I've seen pictures that were carved in, like I said, in areas in and around the pyramids that look like people were using lights. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's some tantalizing evidence there as well. And we do know too in Egypt, there was a great temple. that was built to the wolf of all things, because I like to talk about werewolves. And in one of the areas of that place, there is a carving of what looks remarkably like a helicopter. So that's kind of hard to
Oh wow.
say that didn't exist as well too. And whenever you look at the Nazca lines down there oh, where is it? It's in South America. But the Nazca lines can only be viewed in its totality from the air. So it seems as if ancient cultures were able to at least get up above the earth somehow. It's been suggested that they had, you know, very simple balloons in which you could put fire in, and it would lift you up at least 100 feet or so you could look at the landscape. I'm not sure about that, but what has been going on is that you can see that there are some evidences that there was more to it than just people making art. It seems that there were, at least in some instances, lost knowledge that we have completely forgotten about.
So do you think that we are misinterpreting these depictions of what they were seeing? Like, do you think like because like I said, like watching them and they show like, oh, it looks like flying saucers, or what you're saying looks like a helicopter, or you know, um, do you think we're misinterpreting their
You know,
their
one of my colleagues, Anne Celine, she and I do a lot of research together, and we're doing more and more lectures together as well too. She came up with this term, which I really do like, and it's the idea of a universal great forgetting. Okay, and I think that we as humankind have forgotten so much. So what we deem as, UFO or extraterrestrial or some sort of advanced technology in the ancient world, it seems that we have universally forgotten about this stuff for some reason. And I think our goal as human beings now in the 21st century, as we're discovering new archaeological sites, is to keep an open mind and not project our culture onto past cultures and simply take it in for what it's worth in that particular milieu from which it was excavated.
right? Yeah, it's Kristen heard you say werewolf. She said werewolves.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So it's the Lycopolis over in Egypt, and that is it's a translation into from the Egyptian into the Greek, and it means the city of the wolf. Because the Egyptians had the whole dogman imagery in Anubis and such, but it's in that particular place where it looks like there's a helicopter etched in stone.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Where would they
Yep.
have gotten that?
I don't know. Well, there are people thought, some archaeologists suggest it's their interpretation of an insect, a very stylized insect, because we know that the Egyptians really had a fond likeness for bees. So it might be something like that. But it looks, again, from our perspective, because we're used to these kind of things, it looks like a helicopter, so then it must be a helicopter. That's the reason why we
Right,
always have to keep an open mind and think that they might have been thinking of something other than that.
right. And it's interesting you say that too. A fondness for bees. How important are bees today for our survival? Right.
Absolutely.
And then
Yep,
back
that's
then,
right.
you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like they had this fondness for bees. She said she's gonna have nightmares now.
Yeah. Well, you can have the nightmares after we talk about werewolves on another show. We can do a whole show on werewolves. But yeah, so the other thing too, again, bees sting you, right? Like bees are awesome little animals, but somewhere in our ancient past we thought, let's grab these little things that have stingers and could basically kill you if they wanted to, if enough got on you. Let's take them and we will raise them and we'll get honey from them. That's a huge leap, to think about that.
And
But
pollinators, they're pollinators. It's
oh, exactly, yes,
like,
yes, yes. Yes.
yeah, well,
But honey never expires,
right.
and there's something magical about it as well too. There's been a suggestion that Alexander the Great was actually mummified in honey. so it has this kind of magical property as well too. And it might be a universal medicine that we're overlooking.
Good. I'm glad I put it in my tea.
That's me too. I put it in my tea as well too.
um,
Mhm.
so you don't so you're basically and I love your mind, because not only are you this, master historian, but you're also a paranormal researcher. You're a cryptid guru. You have your mind is so open to all the possibilities, but yet you don't believe in the theory of higher beings coming down and helping these ancient civilizations to. I mean, there's you might know who I'm talking about. I saw a show once where there was a gentleman that actually built large structures, not as large as what the Egyptians were or the Pompeii or anything, but he, just using rope. And what I don't know I cannot remember what his name was. I can't remember what year. I can't remember where, but he actually made a replica of what ancient civilization would be, just using ropes and wood and stuff like this. I cannot remember what the guy's name was. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, but I do remember his experiment. I think it was based upon Easter Island, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to see if he could move these kind of moais type of things, and he was able to do it with just wood and some rudimentary grease made from animal fats. That was kind of in twine like they would have done in the ancient world, and you're able to do it. I think that you're capable of doing anything if you set your mind to it.
Um, so since rum is made from sugar cane, does that in Coke work close to honey and tea?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a one-on-one correspondence. Enjoy. Mhm.
Interesting. I could talk about this stuff all day long. I mean, I watch it on, the History Channel, and I watch it on, like, I just, I'm so fascinated with civilizations and or ancient civilizations, and even like the lost civilizations. Like, that's another thing where, if they're lost civilizations, how do we know they ever existed?
Right. So we gather ancient evidence. Right. Plato talked about Atlantis, and also up until relatively recently, we thought that the site of the Trojan War was fake. We thought it was made up. It was fought back in 1084 BC, and it wasn't until Heinrich Schliemann did some research that we found the area in which the Trojan War took place. So it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of comparative notes. But I think that the things that were lost will be found as long as we, keep. Like I said, our eyes and ears open, and that's one of the reasons why I like folklore so much as well too. That if enough people talk about it, it becomes legend, and with every legend, there's even a little bit of grain of truth to it.
Speaking of folklore and legend, our next episode is
I
going to
cannot wait. It's going to be good. So it's going to be about the haunted folklore regarding the Yuletide season, the Christmas season. So whenever you put up your tree and you start decorating it, you think, well, you know what? I never thought about it this way, but you will in just a couple short weeks.
I know. I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait. Dragon Ranger says, "LOL, sorry, am a smart arse and drinking Kraken and Coke. LOL."
That's right. That's right. Yeah, Kraken. Hey, that's a cryptozoological animal right there as well too.
Kraken. See, you
Yeah, the
know so
Kraken.
much. So the Kraken is a cryptozoology animal.
Yeah, so it was written by the Vikings. This talk of this great tentacled monster that would come out of the ocean and pull their ships to its their death. But as it came out to sea, there's a thing called the Architeuthis, which is a giant squid, fits that bill incredibly. So it seems as if the kraken is indeed based upon a real animal.
Wow. Kristen says, I love spooky Christmas. Yeah, it's going to be good. I can't wait to
It's,
talk about it. There,
it's going to be good.
I cannot wait. Um, is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should talk about
Well,
ancient?
seeing that we covered roughly 12,000 years worth of stuff in an hour, I think we covered it. I think we covered it pretty well. But I'll just put everything in perspective real quick here. So, the tallest building in the world was the Great Pyramid of Giza, which was built in about 3200 BC, right? So, this was the largest building in the world until the Eiffel Tower was built.
And that's what I'm saying. Where's
Yeah,
that gap? There's that
that's
gap.
right. That's right.
There's that
Yeah,
gap that just
yeah,
fascinates me is how we started over. Like there's that gap. Like
right,
and
right, right, right.
how did they make these pyramids? Like I don't buy into aliens and anything like that. I don't buy into that theory. But
Mm,
I want to know how they were so their brains were so advanced
mhm.
that they were able to do this and their manpower, their strength. Like where did it come from?
Right. And now it seems as if they did not rely on slave labor. It seems because we can find the places where the workers were living. These places have been excavated. It seems they were well taken care of, and they were probably a skilled workforce as well. So it seems like people came together to do one of these monumental building projects that took about 20 years to complete.
It's so crazy.
And that's the other thing too. If you think about it, the pyramid was made in about 20 years, in 2 decades. That blows my mind as well too.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
uh, just and then the pyramids were they built solely to house the tombs of all these you know I like King Tut, and this and that. I mean, were these pyramids built solely for that purpose?
I
As a
bel- yeah, that's what people believed. But not to rain on anybody's parade, but there was never a mummy ever found in any of the pyramids.
never.
Never. No.
So what are the tombs that are in there?
Right. Well, exactly. So we know they have burial vaults in there, but there's no mummies in there. So it's very possible that sometime in the distant past, raiders got in there, tomb robbers got in there, which is probably the case. But it seems that the pyramids were more than just a place to hold a body. It seems that there was, almost a marking on the energy grid of the earth itself as saying there's something magical about this place. The same way with Stonehenge as well. And I'm a firm believer that in a world that you are so dependent upon the environment, that you would know things and you would recognize things more than you would today. And I think there's a lot of different places around the earth where you have these great structures built as a memory to that being a sacred place since the very dawn of humanity.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was just using that as an example, Dragon
yeah,
Ranger. Sorry. King Tut was not in a pyramid. The tombs were in the Valley of the Kings, yes.
yeah.
But I was just using that as an example, saying that they did go in there and there were tombs in there of
Yep.
of people, but and what looked like, these mummies or they would what are those called? What's King Tut in that looks like
Oh, sarcophagus.
thank you. I don't
Yeah,
know the technical words for
yeah,
it, but
right.
yeah, so they would find these things, you know what I mean, or whatever. So yeah, I was just using that as an example. Um,
No, I think that was a good point there because a lot of people just assume that these were big old tombstones, when in actuality they were not.
yeah, and I remember watching a show about the Valley of the Kings, because there's a current big, huge archaeological dig going on, and that they are getting into the Valley of the Kings and this and that, and at least when I was watching the show, it was happening. So I mean, it's just fascinates me. I would love to be able to be a part of something like that. Just to, especially I love Pompeii. I loved Pompeii, and maybe because I saw it and I was there.
I think that's it.
I mean,
Sure, sure.
it makes such a difference. I mean, even seeing the Pantheon. I mean, these buildings. I mean, that was built 27 years before Jesus Christ was born, and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
standing as strong as anything.
And it has a freaking hole in the ceiling.
It has a hole in the
It,
ceiling. How is it
it
still
was
standing?
built to have a hole in the ceiling.
It's insane. I
Yeah,
mean, it just fascinates me. I mean, oh, to be able to go back in time and just and see how they did it, see,
that's right.
I mean, I would just, it would, that's where I would go.
Yeah. See, that's the reason why I like to do these shows with you, is because you get to the meat and potatoes of everything, but you have a very romantic view of the world as well too. And I think that that's what's so special about you, Taryn. And that's the reason why I like to have these conversations, is because we get to muse about all this really cool stuff. And at the end of the day, we think, wouldn't it be nice to go back and get a snack off of one of those little restaurants they had there, grab a glass of wine, go use the public toilet together. It would be a great time.
Go use the box. So that-
Yeah,
have a piece of the bread that was in the oven, like, just to say,
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely. Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
yes. Yeah, we could sit across from each other, doing our own business and sharing some wine and cheese.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
I say, well, you should see the one-way streets we have today. Nothing
that's
like the
right.
one-way street. Nothing like the one-way streets you had back then.
That's, that is funny. Oh,
Thank you so much for coming on. I am looking forward to in 2 weeks,
two
December
weeks.
3rd. He's gonna come back on, um, and we're gonna talk about a spooky Christmas where all these traditions and all these things come from. Dragon Ranger saying I would love to check out the ancient Celts as well.
Oh, we could talk the Celts sometime. We could come
Celts.
on back and do a thing on the Druids. Although we are going to be talking about the Celts when we do the Christmas special.
Oh, we are. There we go.
Yeah,
We are going to be talking about the Celts. I said Celtics. I'm talking about the Celtics.
the Celtics. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
The Celts. Yes, definitely. Um, I can't wait for 2 weeks. That's going to be really cool. And where can people find you? Are you doing anything? Do you have anything coming up?
I've got nothing coming up for a while, my dear. Probably not until spring. Ronald or ron-cryptoguru.com is my web address. And you can like me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm on the TikTok machine. And then I also on Amazon.
Awesome. And your books are on Amazon.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I love having you on. Thank you so much. One more thought here. Oh yeah, the Celts and the Vikings and the Yule traditions. Yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's what we'll be talking about.
that's what we talk about. So I hope you tune in next in 2 weeks. Next week I have to take off, but we'll be back in 2 weeks for sure. Ajing from Indonesia. Thank you so much, Ajing. Thank you for a great show and an awesome guest. I'm just listening.
Oh, well, thank you very much for those kind words. And again, we have to give you a bit of congratulations for your nuptials, my dear.
Oh, thank
The gentleman that you have is a very, very lucky individual, and he made a lot of people's hearts break. But I'm glad that you're happy.
you. Thank you so much. I love you
Mm,
so much. You are
well,
one of
thank
my
you.
most favorite people. I love you.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
And I definitely, please join us in 2 weeks. We have some really good spooky Christmas stories. I cannot wait.
I can't wait either.
You have a good night there, Ron.
You too, my dear. We'll talk to you soon.
And to everybody watching, thank you so much for watching. And until 2 weeks, please, everybody, have sweet dreams. Thank you for joining me.